Shedeur Sanders didn't just show up to ESPN's First Take to talk football. He showed up with a purpose. And by the time the segment was over, Dillon Gabriel, standing in the Cleveland Browns quarterback competition, had taken a public hit that no depth chart could hide. This was supposed to be routine. Two quarterbacks discussing camp, throwing out the usual cliches about healthy competition, and just trying to help the team win. Gabriel came in ready for that safe, controlled conversation, the kind where nothing real gets said, and everyone walks away smiling. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Shedeur had other plans. From the second the host teed up a question about practice performances, Shedeur went to work, not with empty bravado, not with trash talk for its own sake. He came armed with data, completion percentages from camp, red zone efficiency numbers, third down conversion rates, stats that weren't just favorable to him. They painted a devastating picture of how wide the gap really was. And then came the line, the one that would be replayed across social media, sports radio, and locker rooms from next week. If practice doesn't matter, why are you still QB2? It was direct, it was surgical, and it was the kind of hit you can't scheme against. Gabriel froze. You could see it in his face. That flicker of hesitation where the media-trained answer doesn't load fast enough. The camera caught it. The audience caught it. And the internet? Oh, they devoured it. Within minutes. The clip was on every sports Twitter account. TikTok had memes. Instagram had side-by-side stat graphics. The public wasn't just watching the Browns QB competition anymore. They were participating in it, taking sides, forming narratives in real time. And this is where Shedeur changed the game. Because this wasn't just a case of one player winning a TV debate. This was an athlete using live television to reshape his public image, redefine the narrative, and apply pressure, not just on a competitor, but on the entire Browns organization. Think about what that does in a locker room. Before that segment, the QB battle was internal. Players knew the stats. Coaches knew the reps, but now the whole world knew. And that changes how teammates look at you. It changes how they talk about you in the huddle. It changes how they respond when one of you takes the field. Gabriel suddenly wasn't just competing with Shedeur in practice. He was competing with the version of Shedeur the public had just crowned as the guy. And that is a different kind of pressure entirely. For the Browns front office, this was a nightmare. They like controlling the messaging. They like dictating when the public learns about roster shifts, depth chart changes, or performance trends. Shedeur just took that control and set it on fire. Now, if they try to keep him on the bench, they have to explain to the world why the quarterback who just humiliated his competition on national TV isn't starting. And make no mistake, this wasn't just ego. This was calculated. Shedeur knew exactly what he was doing. By bringing undeniable facts into a public setting, he wasn't just talking to fans. He was talking to decision makers. He was making it politically difficult for Browns to ignore him. That's why this moment matters so much. In the old NFL, you won your job on practice field and in preseason games. In the new NFL, you can win it in front of a camera if you play it right. This is a collision of on-field performance and off-field narrative control. And Shedeur is proving he's just as dangerous in both arenas. Gabriel, on the other hand, walked right into a trap he didn't even know was set. His whole approach, measured, diplomatic, respectful, played straight into Shedeur's hands. Because in the media space, playing it safe can make you look passive. And passive never wins a quarterback battle, especially when the other guy is confidently seizing every opportunity to shape the story. Now here's the other layer people aren't talking about. The NFL hates this kind of thing. They hate when players break the unwritten rule of keeping internal battles internal. Coaches preach family business for a reason. The second you take it public, you lose control over how it's spun. And here, the league watched a rookie take a conversation they thought they could manage and turn it into a full-blown media spectacle. The ripple effect is already there. Sports talk shows aren't just debating the Browns' QB battle anymore. They're debating how Shedeur used the media to his advantage. They're talking about competitive psychology. They're talking about whether the NFL needs to prepare for a new era where interviews are battlegrounds, not just PR fluff. Even other players are noticing. Across the league, guys are watching that clip and thinking, if I ever get the chance, I'm doing the same thing. Because why let the media control the narrative when you can hijack it yourself? And let's not gloss over this. Shedeur didn't have to raise his voice, insult Gabriel personally, or make it ugly. He kept it calm. He kept it factual, which made it worse for Gabriel, because it didn't come off like trash talk. It came off like truth. That's why the crowd reaction was so strong. You could hear the shift in the room. The laughter wasn't just at Gabriel's expense. It was the kind of reaction you get when someone says a thing everyone else was thinking but didn't have the guts to say. And for Gabriel, this is the kind of hit that doesn't just sting for a day. Every time he walks into a press conference now, someone will try to bring up that moment. Every time he struggles in a practice or a game, the clip will resurface. The shadow of that ESPN segment is going to follow him until he flips the script, if he ever does. For Shedeur, the benefits are obvious. He leaves that studio with his stock higher than ever. Fans see him as the alpha in the competition. Teammates see a quarterback willing to speak the truth and back it up. The front office sees a guy who's not afraid of the spotlight. And if you're the Browns, that's exactly the kind of presence you want leading your franchise. But maybe the biggest takeaway here is what this says about the future of athlete branding. Shedeur didn't just play quarterback that day. He played point guard for his own narrative. He set up the shot, created space, and drained it while everyone was watching. And now, the Browns' QB competition will never be the same. Every interaction between Gabriel and Sanders will have that tension baked into it. Every team meeting, every sideline exchange, every moment on camera will carry the weight of what went down on national TV. The NFL isn't built for this kind of media chess, but Shedeur is. And if this was his way of showing the league how easily he can weaponize perception, then it worked perfectly. Because from here on out, the Browns aren't just deciding between two quarterbacks. They're deciding whether they want the one who plays the game or the one who plays the game and the media like a master. And after that segment, there's really no contest. When the lights went off at ESPN Studio and Shedeur walked out, the story wasn't over. If anything, the real drama was just getting started. Back in Cleveland, the Browns facility was buzzing before the team even hit the practice field. Coaches are pretending not to have an opinion, which, in NFL speak, usually means they had very strong opinions they didn't want to admit publicly. Some assistants loved it. They saw a young quarterback who refused to sit quietly in the background, who didn't accept the unwritten rule that rookies wait their turn. In their eyes, leadership isn't always about what you do in a huddle. Sometimes it's about showing everyone you believe you should be in a huddle in the first place. Others, not so much. The old school guys thought it was too bold, too public, too early. They feared it would divide the locker room, make the other quarterbacks resent him, and turn every practice into a referendum on his words instead of his game. The front office, though, had a different problem: optics. Before that interview, the QB competition was manageable. Internally, they could tell Shedeur he was in the mix without committing to anything. They could rotate reps by time and make the decision late in camp. Now, every day Shedeur wasn't running with the first team would be a headline. Reporters would ask why. Fans would start counting the reps. Talk radio would stir conspiracy theories. And the most dangerous part for Browns was this: Shedeur had made himself the people's choice. Once you win the crowd, you put the organization in a bind. Because benching you doesn't just feel like a football decision. It feels like defying the will of the fans. Inside the locker room, the ripple effect was even sharper. Skilled players started drifting toward Shedeur in between drills. Wide receivers who'd been splitting reps evenly began volunteering for his sets. Not because Gabriel suddenly forgot how to throw, but because momentum is magnetic. And in football, chemistry matters. When guys believe in you, they run routes a little crisper, they fight for that extra yard, they block a little longer. Gabriel felt it. He wasn't just battling for the job anymore. He was fighting gravity. Every snap he took now carried the weight of proving that one viral moment didn't define the reality of camp. But that's the cruel thing about perception. Once it hardens, it takes twice the work to crack it. And Shedeur, he didn't have to say another word. The beauty and brutality of his move was that the clip kept speaking for him. He could go silent for a week, and the internet would still be running highlight edits over that soundbite. He'd essentially created a PR machine that operated without him lifting a finger. Meanwhile, the Browns' PR department was in scramble mode. Do they try to control the narrative? Do they downplay the clip? Do they release a competition still open statement? Every option had risk. If they supported him openly, it would feel like a public demotion for Gabriel. If they pushed back, they'd look like they were siding against a rookie who just gave the fan base exactly what they wanted: confidence and swagger. But the bigger shift was philosophical. Shedeur had just demonstrated something most athletes never even attempt: using national television as an active weapon in a position battle. Not passive exposure, not scripted brand promotion, a full-on strategic play that reshaped internal politics. And the league was watching. Around the NFL, players started talking in group chats. Did you see how he flipped the conversation? Quarterbacks, receivers, even defensive guys started taking mental notes. Because this wasn't about trash talk. This was about flipping leverage. If a rookie can do this, imagine what a star could do in the middle of a contract negotiation. Imagine a Pro Bowler going on live TV, dropping hard stats, and putting the front office in a position where the public starts demanding they get paid. That's the bigger game Shedeur just cracked open. The merging performance stats with media narratives to create a force that's harder for organizations to fight than pure talent alone. In the days after the interview, something else became clear. Gabriel was in a no-win media cycle. If he played well in practice, it was finally showing fight after Shedeur called him out. If he struggled, it was proof Shedeur was right. No headline favored him. That's what makes this kind of psychological hit so powerful. It forces your opponent into a reactive position. And in sports, reactive players almost always lose ground to proactive ones. The Browns' coaching staff started noticing small but telling shifts. Gabriel, once loose and conversational in team meetings, got quieter. He avoided eye contact with certain reporters. In drills, his throws were rushed, like he was trying to force big plays to win back the moment instead of letting the game flow. Shedeur, by contrast, looked even more relaxed, more intentional. That calm wasn't accidental. It was calculated. Nothing rattles teammates more than seeing a guy under that much spotlight pressure, still cracking jokes in the locker room and staying locked in during reps. From a leadership standpoint, that's huge, because NFL players, for all their competitive drive, gravitate toward stability. If you can be the calm in the storm, they'll follow you, especially when the other option looks like he's fighting uphill. And here's where the business side creeps in again. Sponsors, always quick to smell momentum, started sniffing around. Shedeur's management team got a wave of calls from brands who wanted to associate with the new alpha narrative. And every new partnership, every new campaign, reinforced the image that he was a guy, which leaves the Browns staring down a reality they didn't plan for. If Shedeur isn't starting week one, they're not just making a football choice. They're actively defying a national storyline. That's not impossible, but it's messy, because now every interception Gabriel throws in preseason will be judged harsher. Every stalled drive will come with the question, where Shedeur was in? And when that question gets loud enough, it starts influencing more than just the fans. It starts creeping into the decision-making rooms. The genius of what Shedeur did, whether it was instinct or a long game plan, is that he made the conversation bigger than camp. He made it about leadership, about confidence, about who looks and acts like a starting quarterback, not just who grades highest in film review. And in the NFL, sometimes that is what tips the scales. Because when you walk into a huddle, 10 other guys are looking at you and asking themselves one question: do I believe this guy can win us the game? If the answer is yes, and it's backed by the same belief from the fans, the media, and the brand partners, you're already halfway there. The crazy thing about that first take moment was that it didn't just put Shedeur on top in the public conversation. It changed how everyone else had to operate. The other quarterbacks? Suddenly, They weren't just competing for the job. They were competing for narrative control. That's dangerous territory for a player who isn't built for it. Because in football, your mental bandwidth is precious. If you're splitting it between learning the playbook and managing your public image, you're already at a disadvantage. Gabriel, whether he admitted it or not, was now playing defense in a game that wasn't on the schedule. Every media scrum became a potential minefield. Every facial expression was read like body language analysis on a true crime documentary. Was he upset? Was he distracted? Did that sigh after practice mean something? And the Browns coaches? They suddenly had a new kind of pressure, not from inside the building, but from outside noise. Fans were blowing up the team's social accounts demanding more Shedeur reps. Local radio wasn't debating the QB battle anymore. They were debating how quickly Shedeur could take over without hurting team chemistry. That's the thing. When you in the court of public opinion this early, you force everyone else into reactive moves. Coaches get more conservative, trying not to make mistakes. Players overcompensate, trying to force moments that look like leadership. And the guy at the center of it all, in this case, Shedeur, just has to keep playing his game and letting the world do the talking for him. But here's where the next layer kicks in, the locker room politics. If you've ever been around an NFL team, you know players watch everything. They might not say it out loud, but they notice who gets the extra interviews, who gets the marketing shoots, who's on the big screen at the stadium during breaks. And whether they mean to or not, they start gravitating toward the guy who feels like the star. For Shedeur, that meant more informal influence. A receiver who's deciding between running an extra rep with Gabriel or Shedeur. He's going to Shedeur. A lineman figuring out who to sit next to during a meeting. Shedeur's chair is filling up faster. That might sound small, but in a sport where timing and trust are everything, it's massive. And remember, this wasn't just about who had the hotter hand in practice. This was about who looked like the leader of the entire operation. Shedeur had just put himself in that category in the eyes of both his teammates and the public. The Browns' PR department, meanwhile, was in a delicate balancing act. They couldn't muzzle Shedeur without looking like they were trying to dim a rising star. But they also couldn't have every media hit turn into another headline about Gabriel's flaws. So they did what teams always do when they're scrambling. They overmanaged. They tried to schedule joint appearances. They pushed team unity content. They set up photo ops of Gabriel and Shedeur laughing together at practice. Anything to make it look like the moment had blown over. The problem? That only made it worse. Because fans can smell forced PR a mile away. Every picture of them high-fiving looked staged. We're just focused on football. Soundbite from Gabriel sounded like someone trying way too hard to stay in the game. And this is where Shedeur's media instincts really started to show. He didn't flood social media with victory laps. He didn't double down on trash talk. He went the opposite route. Kept his interviews calm, his answers measured, and his focus on the work. That's how you compound a win like this. You make the other guy look like the one chasing the story while you just keep stacking results. Even in practice, there was a shift. Shedeur started leaning into efficiency over flash. No wild throws, no unnecessary risks, just steady completions, clean reads, and visible command of the huddle. It was like he knew the next part of the game was about removing any excuse the coaches could use to keep him off the field. But here's the twist. The real stakes weren't just about winning the job. They were about keeping it. When you take the lead this way, you don't get a grace period. The second Shedeur steps on the field as QB1, every snap will be judged harder than it would for a normal rookie. He's not just fighting the defense. He's fighting the narrative that he's all talk if things go sideways. That's why the build-up to the next preseason game felt like a playoff week, not because the score mattered, but because the optics did. If he comes out and lights it up, that cements everything. If he struggles, the same media that boosted him could turn fast, framing it as a lesson in humility. It's a razor-thin margin, and Shedeur knows it. Behind the scenes, even the veterans were watching differently. Guys who usually don't care about quarterback drama were suddenly invested, partly because they respected the guts it took to pull off that TV moment, and partly because they wanted to see if he could back it up. NFL locker rooms have a brutal truth to them. Players root for whoever they think gives them the best shot to win, and the best shot to shine themselves. If Shedeur can deliver both, it's game over. He's their guy. And there's one more wrinkle: the Browns' ownership. They love stars. They love media buzz. But they also hate losing control of the team's narrative. Shedeur represents both opportunity and risk. If he wins and the team thrives, they look like geniuses for drafting him. But if he wins in the public eye before they're ready, it makes them look like they weren't the ones driving the decision. That's why, in situations like this, you can almost feel the tension between the marketing department and the coaching staff. Marketing wants to plaster his face everywhere. Coaching wants to slow play it. And the player? The player just wants to prove the whole debate should have been over weeks ago. The bottom line? Shedeur didn't just change the quarterback competition. He changed the rules of the competition. It's no longer about who has the better stat line in camp. It's about who commands the narrative, who owns a locker room, and who makes a franchise look better in the public eye. And right now, in all three categories, Shedeur has the edge. What happens next will come down to whether he can turn that momentum into undeniable on-field results. Because once you made the leap from rookie fighting for a spot to rookie with a spotlight, you don't get to fade quietly into the background. You either become the story, or the story swallows you.